Hello and welcome to a special series of Blocktalk, which we're calling Blocktalk Explores. These quick listen episodes will be split by topic area, as our guests, who are all industry leaders in Scotland, will be discussing three specific industry topics. Topic number one is education and awareness of the industry and what property factors do. Number two is recruitment within the industry and any challenges that they see. And the third one is customer care. We'll release 2 episodes in week 1, and the third will be released the following week. We hope you enjoy the series, and as always, it would be great to hear your feedback. Right, so on to kind of recruitment then. Could you tell us what your experience is in recruiting? Because, I hear problems, people leaving industry, difficult to get people in. Certainly in Scotland, there's a lot of kind of people move around the industry from one factor to another. Can you tell us kind of what your experience with recruitment has been over the last few years?
Yeah, well, I come from a generation, you might not think this, anyone's looking at me, I know I look very, very fresh-faced. But I come from a generation where, when I first started in the industry, it was a lifelong career. Yeah. I worked with mainly men at the time. That's really spun on its head. It's gone completely the opposite way. But mainly men that had been, had been around the industry, the business, probably most of their working lives, and they were, anticipating that they would retire from the business that they'd been with for 30, 40 years, and that was normal. I would say in the last 10 years, there's been a massive change in the demographic of the type of people that work in factors businesses, mainly for the good, I have to say. And it's a much more diverse industry, particularly in terms of the gender balance. And Newton are a classic example of that, obviously now with our new CEO, Karen, that's come in. But particularly in the last 10 years and post-COVID, we can see some cracks opening up there, and and we're in a, I did economics at part of my course at university, and you look at the whole kind of traditional model of how economies work, and cycles of employment and unemployment, and availability of labour force, etc. But we're sitting at a historically high number of people in work, so that presents a challenge, because everyone's crying out for people, and if you work in an industry where you maybe you don't feel valued, or you feel you're not getting the correct professional development, or for a whole number of reasons. But there are lots of viable options out there. I have to say, for anyone listening to this, working for a property management company, whilst we never take anything for granted, it is still a career that you can hold up and say that that it is a tough gig, but it's a very stable working environment, and it's relatively predictable, and it's like the old thing, when you take out a pension, and the pensions advisor says, right, stick the tail on the pin in the tail of the donkey. Where do you want it to go? Do you want to be low risk? Do you want to be high risk? Working in the property management realm, and particularly in factoring, it's relatively low risk in terms of being able to think about, is the company stable? Is it going to survive? Is it going to prosper? It's a relatively good place to place your bet. But we know that, having said that, if somebody were to leave property management and go into another business and that didn't work out, then they could easily move into something else, because that's just the labour market just now.
Very true. I think everyone has the same challenge. I mean, finding good developers at the moment, software developers at the moment, is extremely difficult. Yeah, I mean, we've actually been really, really fortunate. I think maybe we found a couple of good recruitment agencies, but we've placed 3 developers and 2 support people recently. And in the past, we would have looked for months and months and months and months to find anyone suitable to come on board. So that was different. So I don't know if you managed to see the podcast or listen to the podcast we did with Malcolm and Zoe. And in fact, I think you mentioned just pre-coming on that you saw Malcolm was speaking at the conference you were at. So they were talking a lot about kind of Gen Z, what they need or Gen Z. So I keep saying that sounds too American. Gen Z. So what they need as people and employees within an organization, and mainly block management company, property management companies are ran by older people, not always, but that kind of two completely conflicting kind of ideas about work, possibly. So we talked about that, and we also talked about flexible working as well. And this is one thing, certainly from my point of view. We are pretty much a work from home company now, and our pool of potential employees would diminish by probably 90% if we want, from a software development point of view. Now, okay, a software developer sitting in a room in Huddersfield or somewhere like that is maybe not a big issue, but a property manager sitting in a room in Huddersfield when he's got portfolio in Glasgow is never going to work. So I get it, it's an entirely different industry. But I just wondered if you had any views on that kind of chat we had with them.
Yeah, so I heard Malcolm speak last week, and I was doing a lot of nodding, and I could see where we're going with it. I think it's horses for courses. I think that you can't say that flexible working is right for everybody, and you can't say that being office based all the time is right for everybody. What I would say is that looking at this business and having been in the business for, as you know, for a long time, there's a certain magic that happens in a factors business where sometimes teams of people collaborate in a very personal way, and it creates excitement, it creates energy. Problem solving is a big part of what we do. We can have all of our ducks in a row, and there's always something that comes up that we can't anticipate. And from our experience, the best way to deal with that is when people are working in close proximity, and you can literally, and it sounds like a cliche, you can turn to the person next to you and say, what do you think? However, we need to recognise that what we're talking about earlier on in the labour market, that people have got enormous choice now. And in terms of the diversity of the staff that we have now, that there's the complexity of people's home lives is so much more, I think, than it's ever been, and all the pressures that come with that. So, I think it is important that every property manager acknowledges that everyone is in a different position, and they allow that flexibility. However, I think everything is very topical, and this is very topical at the moment. But if you've been looking at the state broadcasters press this week, there's been a couple of stories. Number one, the Chancellor is realising, I think, that the amount of people that are not office-based is causing a bigger issue for the economy, for other services, for retail, or whatever it is, in the typical town centres. Not having that flow of custom I think is causing an issue. And he's encouraging, I think, companies to think about their policy. And also there was a story running about the number of people that are off long-term sick, 2.5 million, which is about 8%.
I've not seen that number now.
Yeah. Wow. So I think it's about 8% of the working population are off long-term sick at the moment. And A number of reasons that are being honed in for that. One is the physically, if people are sitting, in their home working on a laptop or something, that they don't have the typical kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Their posture might not be correct. And
because you would do a DSC assessment in your office, but to be fair, we do them at home as well because most of ours are home working. But I get it. Yeah, you're sitting on a dining room chair with a laptop on your knee. That's not good.
Yeah, and also the report. I think it highlighted mental health issues being a problem. Whether that, I'm just speculating, whether that's because you're not in a group where you can blow off steam and make a joke or have a laugh or ask someone the water cooler chat, whatever. But also I think they're saying there's an substantial issue with long COVID. Surely wasn't on my radar, but it kind of makes sense as well. So I think I think there's definitely a balance. Newton are certainly never going to be the kind of company that's going to say, it has to be this way. We have to make sure that. But I would really stress that if you for the people that work in the industry and the business, it's that magic that happens when people are around. And in physical proximity, but I get in your industry, it's intensively what's the word? Your developers need to have that period of concentration for a long time,
absolutely.
Unbroken, and that would suit a quiet, peaceful environment where they can just get on with that.
Yeah, I think no, I don't disagree with anything you said. I think from me the way you learn almost by osmosis, don't you? You're sitting in a room, you're typing away, but subconsciously you're hearing a conversation across the room, so you're learning all the time, and also you lose that whole two people are having a conversation about something, and they're not going to phone you to ask you, but you hear it, you just pitch it and give them the answer. You know what I mean? Or give an opinion or something like that. So you kind of lose that. I mean, you can never get that back totally, but you can. We do have things kind of in place that attempt to kind of resolve these things. Like we huddle every morning. Every single person has a huddle every morning, so we know what everyone's doing yesterday, today, challenges, blah 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 blah. There's a huge amount of that goes on, but what you also find is you spend a lot of time in internal meetings because you spend a lot of time in organizing a conversation about a subject instead of just going, guys, how are we going to do this sort of thing? So yeah, I do get it. And any views on this kind of Z, and how the difference that from I guess us to them in the workplace. Any views on that?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're speaking about. I think there's the temptation to be controversial here, which I never am, as you know. But I think that we're going through a moment in time just now. You hear a lot of politicians talking about pendulums moving, from one side to the other, and I strongly believe that we're going to see the pendulums in this position. It's going to come back, and I think people gravitate to common sense.
Yeah,
ultimately, right? Because you have to, most people have the same objectives in life, and it's how they achieve those objectives. And at the moment, if there's a sway of opinion that says, "Oh, we should do it this way," this is the best way to do that. But then, if that turns out not to be right, which I believe that there's a culture at the moment that might not be quite right or quite settled. Rather, then I think you'll see that swing back at some point. Certainly not to, the position it was 20 years ago, because there's we want people to enjoy what they do.
Yeah,
we want people to get all of the benefits out of having a stable career. But you know, I think we just need to be cautious that you know, people need to understand that work is work, and you know, everything outside that is outside that. You've got your work time. How do you maximize the benefit from that? And you know, the people that are you know, working in these businesses that are, you know, really adapting to you know, the best way of working, that other people are doing the best out of it.
Okay. Interesting. I listened to a podcast, actually. I think it was Stephen Bartlett and Simon Sinek, and they were talking about the subject of Gen Z, and Simon was kind of putting forward this this position where, you know, if you got people who jump around. Sorry, my screen just went off. I probably so did my mic. So if you got people who jump around a lot, then actually after 5 years, they almost become unemployable because I'll tell you one thing, our HR department, when we go out we've got a core of about 4 or 5 recruiters, and they all know we don't want a hoppy person. So if someone's hopped from job to job to job, we don't even get the CV. Yeah. Now, you know, that in 99% of times, it just means they move jobs. I mean, you know, if someone's been in a job for 10, 15 years and then they jump 3 or 4 times, they've just not found their place again. Do you know what I mean? But if you have someone starting their career and they've jumped around 5 times in 2 or 3 years, then, you know, what does that say to the employer who's about to go and spend, I don't know, 15% on a recruitment fee, 6 months training? You know what I mean? It's a difficult situation. So I think you're right, though. Common sense will hopefully prevail, you know, in that sort of situation.